Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to be showing is how we go ahead and create a version controller. So basically, it's a very simple process to create a version controller, and that is we make a copy of the controller that we have that we want to change. We rename it. There's also another option to use the namespace, which we may hint later, but I'm only going to cover with the name change in the controller. And once we change the controller, we need to see what we're changing. In our case, for this example, what we're changing is the model that's going to be returning additional fields from the database. But before we can continue this example, what I need to do is go ahead and disable the security, and I'll do that through the use of pound if debug. So up here at the top of the page, I'll go ahead and create this pound if debug, and I'll define disable security. And then in our unauthorized or unauthorization method here, where there's an override, I'm going to go ahead and add if not disable security, and basically this is going to omit everything that happens in this method here. And then also in our identity service, we want to do something similar, because we don't want to be authenticating the user. We just want to go back to using, we're just returning the name, direct name from the database, Sean Wildermuth. So we'll do similar, pound if debug, return Sean Wildermuth, and else, if it's not a debug, then return the thread current principal identity name. I also got to make sure that I put Sean Wildermuth back in the database, because I think I've used my user there now. So those are just a couple of changes before we continue. Let me see if it builds. So that built successfully, and now we can go ahead and start versioning our controller. So the controller that we want to change is going to be this measures controller. So what we do is create a copy of it and then rename it to measures v2 controller, and this is one of the ways of doing it. There was a mention of doing it through the different namespace. So now I have measures v2 controller, and what I want to do here, I had to rename it because it's already saying there's one with the same name, and we can't have that. So rename this controller to measures v2 controller, and then what we want this controller to do differently than our original, for this version we want to return some new items from the database in our measure model. So we also have to change the measure model to a different version. So I'll just create measure v2 model for both the list and individual item, and I'll go ahead and create in our model here directory. We need to go ahead and create measure v2 model. So we'll do the same thing, copy and rename. And here's our measure v2 model. Instead of creating whole another models with the properties that we already have in our original model, we can just extend it with the measure model and then just add a new properties that we need. So then in our model factory, we want to go ahead and create the create2 method that will go ahead and create our new measure v2 model, and this one is going to have all the new properties. So in our controller, we want to go ahead and call create2. That should take care of this squiggly line issue. And then also down here for individual, we also want to call create2. So basically, with these changes, we were able to create a new version of controller. The changes that we wanted to implement is adding additional database fields, which is what we're doing. And now we need to see how we're going to be calling this new controller instead of, the old one. That's going to be coming in the next video.